have a look at a reporting question in practice. Now, you haven't looked at my video on the fundamentals of reporting opinions and how and when to modify opinions, then you need to go back and have a look at that so you understand the basics of it. Because we're going to follow a 5-step approach, which gets you those 5 marks that you need for most fully written questions on reporting, okay, unless it's multiple choice or a small issue and all those other things. But we're dealing with a 5 marker. Now, the approach I talk about is discuss the issue. So that's usually a financial reporting problem. Then discuss if it's material. Then, if it is material, you can discuss whether it's pervasive. Okay. Then you need to tell the examiner what the opinion is specifically. And then if there's anything else to discuss, usually it will be the basis paragraph, which we'll deal with now. Then you drop that in as your final step if you have time, usually. Now, we're going to go through exactly those 5 steps so you can see exactly how a question would look and how I would typically write it. Now, this is a question that pulled from the ACCA's Audit and Assurance exam from a year or so ago. Now, in that exam, there was a set of questions around substantive testing, and a typical question on the end of that is, and 4 or 5 marks, discuss the reporting implications. And that's quite common in ICW exams as well, and some others where they kind of embed them a little bit together. Now, in this case, one of the most important things that I'm going to pick up that will get you effectively, potentially an automatic mark, even if you had no clue what was going on, you forgot the financial reporting, you didn't really know how to do a financial reporting question, but you got 2 numbers. That's what we signed up for as accountants, really, isn't it? So how do you get 1 mark automatically? You could just calculate that it's material. Okay, it's a bit of a cheat code. We don't really like it, but it's, if you're stuck, you get a bit of a mind block, you don't have a clue, then you've got a couple of numbers to play with. So in this case, the profit before tax is one of our key bases for materiality. Okay, so we're looking at 5 to 10% of profit before tax. Generally, just use the lower threshold of 5% or more. Okay. So we need that number. Second bit is we've given all this text. Again, what am I looking for? That number. Okay, so I've got 700,000 here. Okay, now it says that there's work in progress and the audit team have already identified a problem. Now, I don't like this, because what that means is the examiner might have stripped me away from some marks. Okay, because normally when I do a financial reporting part of a question, I need to tell them what's wrong. In this case, they've already told me what's wrong. So they've kind of potentially just taken away half a mark from me. Okay, not to worry, we're still going to get half a mark because we need to tell them what happens. Okay, what's the impact of that? So what we're looking at is that the balance is overstated by 0.7 million, which means it's just a misstatement generally. Okay, we'd call that a general misstatement. And now we need to think about what to do next. So the question that was asked was, discuss the issue and describe the impact on the audit report, if any, if it remains unresolved. And that's the assumption anyway. Okay, we take the assumption that if it's unresolved. Now, sometimes some questions allow you to go both ways, but it's rare because otherwise you have to give a lot of marks for stuff. So you just need to assume that the client won't change it. Okay, so we have that. First bit is discuss the issue. Now, they've already done that, sadly. So what I said was the incorrect percent will result in, and then here's the financial reporting impact. So work in progress being impacted as part of inventory, and therefore profit being overstated. Okay, now that is probably going to be worth only half a mark. But if you put something like and leads to a material misstatement, okay, just to clarify that, you might get a full mark. Some exams you will get a whole mark for this, but realistically I'm assuming it's half a mark because it's not really much work to tell the examiner what it will impact. Whereas when you're doing a financial reporting question and saying, oh, well, that's likely to be a provision because it's probable and blah blah blah, that's a bit of work. Okay, you need to know a bit of financial reporting, whereas this is just telling them what's the financial statement impact. So either way, in a question like this, I would say, and therefore profit or inventory would be overstated or something like that. But because the examiner's already told me what's wrong, I can only kind of drop that last bit in. So that's discussing the issue. Second, materiality. This is where I said automatic mark, because they told me that it's 0.7 million out of the profit before tax. So I just need to calculate it and say the error is 5.7% of profit before tax. Now, if they gave me the inventory value as well, but I didn't show that for you, but this is just part of the answer. So 5.7%. Yes, that generally I say 1 decimal place is good. Okay, so 1 decimal place, if you can, is what the examiner typically expects. Okay, if you do 7 decimal places, you kind of need to think, do I really need to write all those figures? Just one decimal place works, and you don't need to show your workings in brackets, because if you get it right, it's fine. Okay. But this is one of those, it's not a financial reporting calculation where there's 16 marks for all your calculations. They expect you can do this, because there should only really be 2 numbers you need. So it's 5.7%, and then tell them it therefore is material. If you don't say that, you're only getting half a mark, even though you know the threshold is 5% and they know the threshold is 5%. If you don't tell them that makes it material, then you're only getting half. They can't read between the lines. Then the matter is unlikely to be pervasive. So the fact that it's material opens up this box to say whether it's pervasive or not. And pervasive is, it affects more than one area. It's fundamental to users. So I just say, it's not fundamental to users, and try and give a little bit of an explanation as to why, it's a one-off issue. It's likely to be resolved, but really, it's not really going to have a big impact. Okay, because they're going to go, 5% of profit tax. Okay, so not really a massive impact on profits. So the performance of the company looks fairly similar to what it did before. So it's kind of easy to argue. Then you've got the opinion. The opinion will be modified. This is like a half a mark answer. Some exams give you a mark for it, which I think is generous. But it will be modified due to the material misstatement. So it's the fact that it will change because of a material misstatement that might get you a bit more credit. But if I assume half a mark for this, it's a bit generic. If I've got a 50-50, I'll flip a coin. It's unmodified or it's modified. It's a pretty guessable answer. But what I really want is something like this. So the opinion will be qualified because of that material misstatement. The opinion will be changed to the financial statements are true and fair except for the matters related to work in progress. And what that does is clearly tells the examiner the opinion's qualified. It's due to a material misstatement or material error. Okay. The opinion itself will change, and the wording of that is true and fair except for. And there might be more credit than that. In some exams, you get more credit for kind of explaining what the opinion would look like. But at least, really important, you tell them what the opinion is, and then you tell them why that opinion has changed. Step 5. Anything else? Well, whenever we change our opinion, we have to outline it's the basis of qualified opinion paragraph. Okay. Yes, it comes after the opinion, which is like 99% of the rest of the report, and explain the reasons for this and quantify its effect. Now, you don't have to explain the reasons. You don't have to quantify its effect. I'm just saying this is what will be included in that paragraph, and that is worth a mark, which feels like I could remember that every single time. Okay, it's just a knowledge-based thing that we need to know. It's basis of something paragraph. Okay, so it's the basis of qualified opinion paragraph. If it was adverse or disclaimer, you just change the word to basis of adverse or disclaimer paragraph. Okay, opinion paragraph. Now, that's our run through. Hope that helps. Let me know a question in the comments. And if you didn't get that correct as we went through, then drop back to the reporting opinion, okay, and ask for clarification. Enjoy.